The chief said no one could challenge him. A 12-year-old girl proved him wrong. The village of Adam had once been a happy place. Good farmers, good soil, good seasons, until Chief Oba arrived. Not born chief, he had taken the position through manipulation, intimidation, and the talent of ruthless men everywhere for finding the moment when good people are too tired to resist. Taxes began at 10%, moved to 15, then 20, then 25. Each increase announced for the development of the village, but the village never developed. Roads stayed broken, schools stayed closed, markets stayed controlled, and Chief Oba's compound grew larger. Every year, the elders tried, 3 of them, formally with respect. The next morning, 2 lost their market licenses. The 3rd lost his farm. The warriors tried. They organized quietly. Someone informed on them. The ringleaders were arrested, released, with nothing said, but everything understood. The farmers tried. A petition, 40 signatures, returned unopened, with a message: those who complain will find their complaints answered by his guards. After that, the village went quiet, the particular quiet of people who have tried and failed, and decided survival requires silence. Abena was 12 years old, daughter of a farmer, not the smartest in her class, not the strongest, not the most confident. She was simply a child who paid attention. She had watched the elders go quiet, the warriors look away, her father come home with less every month, eating smaller portions so she could eat enough. Her grandmother had told her, fear is the chief's greatest weapon, not his guards, not his taxes. Fear, because once you are afraid, you do the chief's work for him. You silence yourself. What happens if someone is not afraid? Abena asked. Her grandmother looked at her for a long time, with an expression Abena would not understand, until now. At the next village assembly, Chief Oba spoke for 20 minutes about development coming, roads, school, market, all vague, all promised before, all never delivered. Are there any questions? Silence, as always. The chief began to stand. Then a voice, small, clear, from the middle of the crowd. I have a question. The crowd turned. A 12-year-old girl, standing, looking at the chief, directly, without blinking. The chief almost laughed. Speak, he said dismissively. He was wrong. Chief, you have told us every month for 3 years that the taxes are for the development of this village. I would like to ask, which development? The development that is coming, he said. Which development? She asked again. The development I have planned. Which development? She said a 3rd time. Then she turned to the crowd. 3 years ago, the school closed. Is that the development? 3 years ago, the Eastern Road broke. Is that the development? 3 years ago, the market fees tripled. Is that the development? 3 years ago, Chief Oba's compound had 2 buildings. Today it has 7. Is that the development? Then back to the chief. My question is very simple. Where is the development our taxes have paid for? Please show us. Point to it. We will all walk there together, right now, and see it. The chief opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out, because there was nothing to point to. The crowd that had been bowed was standing straight, looking at the chief with eyes that had been reminded by a child of what they already knew and had been afraid to say. That night the village met, without the chief, in the home of old Mensa, 12 families, then 20, then 30. Speaking honestly for the first time in 3 years, the chief summoned his advisors. Revoke the farmer's license, he demanded. His advisor hesitated. My chief, if we punish the girl's father for asking a question, we confirm everything the question implied. The answer to an unanswered question is never more silence. It is an answer. Repair the Eastern Road. Start tomorrow. Give them an answer before the question becomes a movement. The chief nodded. Once, slowly. The road repair began the next morning. For the first time in 8 years, Abena had not just asked a question, she had reminded the village of something it had forgotten, that it had a voice. And voices, once remembered, are very difficult to silence again. Within 6 months, the school had reopened, market fees reduced, 2 more roads repaired, an elder council established to oversee tax allocation transparently. Chief Oba remained, but diminished, from a man who ruled to a man who was accountable, which is exactly what a chief is supposed to be. And Abena went back to school, ordinary, just a girl who paid attention and had not yet learned to be afraid of power. And that had been enough. Old Tortoise asked her, "Were you afraid?" "Yes, very afraid." "Then how did you do it?" "My grandmother said fear is the chief's greatest weapon. Once you are afraid, you do his work for him." I decided I would not do his work for him. I was still afraid, but the question was more important than my fear. So I asked it, and then it was done. And the fear was less powerful than I thought. It always is, once you face it. Tortoise spoke. Silence is never safe. Silence is just a slower kind of suffering, because injustice does not stop because you are quiet. It continues and grows and becomes more comfortable with itself the longer no one challenges it. What you did was remarkable, not because you were brave, but because you were afraid and spoke anyway. That is the only courage that matters, not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Truth spoken by one brave voice is louder than 1,000 silent ones. Whatever injustice you are watching, whatever wrong you can see, whatever question sits in your chest that you have been afraid to ask it. You do not need to be the smartest. You do not need to be the strongest. You just need to decide that the question is more important than your fear. Because truth spoken by one brave voice is louder than 1,000 silent ones. Subscribe to Africa Untold, where every story carries a lesson. Stay wise, stay strong. Africa Untold.